Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. They look pretty good. They're 2-0, and the Eagles are coming to the Dome to take on the black and gold in what should be an incredible atmosphere. Luke Johnson covers the Saints for The Advocate. He joins us every single Thursday here on the show. Does so now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm still recovering from that champagne bath I took last night celebrating the NL Central title. I don't know if you're aware of
God in heaven. Didn't even see it coming. We lost to the A's and the Rockies. It's a disaster. I'm disgusted. I thought the Brewers were absolutely out of my mind. They traded their two best pitchers weren't available, and they clinched in the middle of September. It's a disgrace by the organization in Chicago.
This is great radio, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just do this for another 10 minutes.
That's just not, because we have really important stuff to talk about. If I had told you 15 days ago the Saints would be 2-0, you would have said?
I wouldn't have been necessarily surprised. I actually, on our podcast in May when the schedule was released, I actually picked the Saints to beat the Cowboys in that game. But I just didn't think it was going to look like this. So, the 2-0 part I'm not necessarily surprised by, but, the way they've done it, yes, absolutely shocked.
What's been the most shocking part of the first 2 weeks?
I mean, it's the offense, right? It's everything about the offense. With the exception of the structure of it, I think a lot of us were kind of anticipating that. A lot of outside zone, a lot of play action. We kind of saw in training camp the run game is probably going to look pretty good. But I don't think anybody was anticipating this offensive line was going to give up two not very costly sacks through 2 weeks. I sure as hell don't think anybody was anticipating Derek Carr having a 142 passer rating, having the Saints have literally the most explosive offense in the league. I mean, you can look at pretty much any stat. They're number 1 to 5 in everything. It doesn't matter if you're talking counting stats or the advanced stats like EPA per play and success rate. They're way up at the top of the NFL and everything. And it's really, really surprising. They've caught a lot of people off guard. Defensively,
is it about what you expected? Is it better?
No, I think it's about what I expected. I thought they were going to be pretty good defensively this year. And that's why all the stuff in the lead up to the season and these power rankings that had the Saints 28th, 27th. I felt like a lot of that was based off vibes because admittedly the vibes were terrible. But that defense was always going to keep them at the very least competitive, right? They were always going to be in games. It was just a matter of what their offense could be. I think the only thing about this defense where you wanted to see them take a huge step forward from last year was in the pass rush. And I think the front four has been a lot better through 2 weeks than maybe a lot of people were giving them credit for coming into the season. I think Chase Young's been a really strong addition to this team. Cam Jordan's playing a lot less than he did last year, and a lot of his snaps are as an interior rusher on passing situations. So I think they have 4 or 5 guys who can rush the passer, and it's made things a lot better for this defense, especially since teams are kind of having to throw the ball because of the situation the offense is putting them in.
Yeah, I think Philly would like to stay away from that. I think they'd like to run the ball with Jalen Hurts and, of course, their new addition, Saquon Barkley, who had a monster game down in Brazil in the opener. How do you feel about the Saints matching up with the Eagles' running game? I know that running quarterbacks have been kind of a bugaboo in the Allen era.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that is kind of giving me a little bit of concern in this matchup, right? The Eagles have studs kind of all throughout the skill position areas. Obviously, the A.J. Brown injury is something we're kind of keeping a close eye on because when he's healthy, he's a top 3 receiver in the NFL. He's really, really good, and they know how to use him. But if he's not out there, I mean, it's really just comes down to whether the Saints can stop this run game or at least prevent it from being something where Philly has this huge time of possession advantage and they're grinding out long drives and keeping the Saints offense off the field. The Saints haven't faced a rushing attack like this yet. They're a little bit untested. So I think that's going to be the key in this one. And you're right. The stopping mobile quarterbacks has been a huge thorn in this defensive side for years. They play all this man coverage. Guys have their backs turned to the quarterback. And if, he escapes the contain of the pocket, a lot of times there's a lot of room to run. And we've seen Jalen Hurts time and time again against the Saints and against other teams really burn other teams with his ability to run and his ability to scramble.
Do you think Cam Jordan plays more in a game where you figure Philly might stick to the ground? That's kind of this thing that he can still do pretty well.
I think really that just depends on the game script. If the Saints kind of continue on this offensive trajectory where they're scoring on every possession, it's going to be hard for Philly to get into a type of game where they're pounding the Saints on the run. If they're going to be in a lot of passing situations, I would expect Cam to play an awful lot. Especially when they're rotating him inside on those obvious second and third and long passing situations. But if it's a tighter game, which it absolutely could be, especially if Philly's able to establish the run, then he's going to have to be out there a lot because he's one of their better run defenders still. Even though he's not what he used to be as a pass rusher, he's still a very, very good run defender.
Look at the secondary for the Saints, and they were pretty good without Lattimore. That's a testament to Dennis Allen and the talent he's accrued there in the secondary. Lamb had the one big play. You mentioned A.J. Brown being out. Devontae Smith is out there, but how does the Saints match up on the outside without A.J. Brown potentially?
I think really good. And even if A.J. Brown's out there, I have a feeling that Marshawn Lattimore is going to play this week.
Yeah.
He's been out of practice, and he's the type of guy who thrives in those matchups, especially like being a player who has a lot to prove still. I think he wants A.J. Brown to be out there. But if he's not, they still have good weapons. Like Devontae Smith is a really good receiver. Dallas Goedert is a really good tight end, and the Saints had some trouble with tight ends last year. They still got guys who can hurt you, but this has just been year over year consistently a very, very good secondary. And if you get a guy like Marshawn Lattimore back, then you're four deep at corner. You got Tyron chipping in there as a still very good safety, center field safety, or a guy who's going to kind of make you pay for mistakes. Honestly, I would take them against just about everybody right now. They're very deep in that secondary, and Dennis Allen knows how to get those guys ready to play against elite receivers.
Best dome environment on Sunday since when?
Oh, man, like 2019.
Yeah.
Seriously, like I was talking to my colleague Matthew Paris in week one. He started covering the team midway through last year. About the third quarter in week one, when they were just like braining Carolina, I like leaned over to him. I'm like, this is like close to what it used to be like all the time. And that was a game where it was literally, I checked at kickoff, it was $18 to get into the stadium at kickoff. Like the secondary market right now, it's like $150 to get into the game, week 3. It is going to be absolutely bananas down there. We'll see if the Saints can like keep this up and keep giving people something to cheer for, because like home field advantage hasn't really been a thing for them in recent years. They're playing to about a 500 record at the Dome. So if they could get that crowd back behind them, that could be so helpful for them, especially against an offense with like a lot of talented players.
I'm not talking about winning by 20 points every week. I'm not talking about scoring every time they touch the ball, but just in general, how sustainable is this Saints run? Can they be a real threat in the NFC?
It's hard to argue against it right now. There's going to be times when teams are going to come up with solutions to what they're doing, and we're going to have to see whether they can adjust to that. They've been playing since the start of the season. They played like the same game script, right? It's they get up early and then they just kind of sit on a lead. Like Derek Carr has like 35 pass attempts through 2 weeks. Like there's going to be games where he's going to have to throw the ball 35 times in one game. But I think we've also just seen so much creativeness out of Clint Kubiak and getting guys in position to make plays. And especially if they're going to keep running the ball like this. And I think they will this week against Philly. Philly's got a terrible run defense. We saw Bijan Robinson kill them on outside zones for like the better chunk of Monday night's game. And that is like exactly the Saints' bread and butter. If they can keep running the ball like this or anything close to this, they can build literally everything else they do off that run game. That's what makes them so tough to defend. So I'm buying in on them, man. I think they're going to be really fun and interesting and exciting all season. And I think I'm confident in Kubiak to come up with the counters to the counters.
That's the biggest thing there because they're going to come quickly, and that's just part of being in the NFL. But he's aware of that. It's not like that's going to catch him off guard. I'm curious to see it as well. Last thing here, Luke, we appreciate some time here. Derek Carr met with the media yesterday and kind of talked about the reception that he got in the Dome last year, that the whole team got in the Dome last year, and that it's going to be different on Sunday. And he, as usual, said all the right things. But what do you make of that kind of change of heart in New Orleans over a 2-week span about the starting quarterback?
Well, I mean, it tells you everything you need to know about the NFL, right? It is a cutthroat business, and it was unfair last year. There's no doubt about that. But like people pay a lot of money to go see these games, and they demand a very high level from their players. So the only way to turn that around is to have success. And I'm frankly like surprised at how quickly it's changed and how quickly public perception of him has changed. But I'm glad to see it. I was worried that they were going to come out and look pretty good, and people were still going to hate Derek Carr and Dennis Allen. But I think, just judging by what I see, which is only a small window into the Saints fanhood, but it is worth noting. Everything's been super positive. Everybody's been really, really excited, and that's just. It's fun being around this team again. Like for the last 3 years, it wasn't fun, and it's fun now, and I really appreciate that.
I get how that goes. I've covered some bad LSU teams. I've covered some good ones day to day, and it's a lot more fun when they're playing good. Luke, we appreciate. Oh, I just saw this. Derek Carr got fined $14,000 for his touchdown celebration. So I don't think
talk about no fun, right? I mean, geez, come on, man. Like Michael Jackson performed at a Super Bowl and did the same thing at a Super Bowl. He didn't find Michael Jackson. Get out of here with that nonsense, NFL.
I would tend to agree. No fun league, but everybody's having some fun in New Orleans. It ought to be an awesome environment. Enjoy the game on Sunday. We'll talk next week, Luke. Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.
He's Luke Johnson with The Advocate at By Luke Johnson for all your Saints coverage. $14,000 for Derek Carr. I think he'll live. That's a pretty sizable contract you got there, $100 million. But it is what it is.
Luke had a good tweet on Sunday for the Saints game. They had a picture of Cam Jordan on the sideline, smiling, talking to Derek Carr, and he had like a little three shot picture of Derek Carr smiling. And then you probably haven't seen the movie, but it was a movie called Django Unchained with
heard of it, never seen it.
Leonardo DiCaprio. There's a famous.
It's one of the best directors, Scorsese.
Yeah,
or
right.
One of the guys.
Yeah, it's so
Tarantino. It's one of those guys.
Yeah, it's Tarantino.
There you go.
So there's this famous meme of Leonardo DiCaprio's character smiling, and he looks just like him. And he put like a 3-shot picture of Cam Jordan and him smiling, and then and it actually did pretty well. And then somebody, of course, photoshopped Cam Jordan's head like onto Leonardo DiCaprio, so it kind of went a little viral. So good for Luke.
Excellent work, Luke. Way to be creative on the Twitter machine.
Yeah.
The Saints are going to win by $1 billion every
Might
week.
as well. You got to do something.
You got your story written. You got to do something to pass the time in the press box. He's correct about it just being more fun to be around. It's more fun to talk about it. It's more fun to watch. Just the whole thing is better. And I realize that this city, Baton Rouge, is not exactly like New Orleans, and that things are far more impactful in the 504 than they are up here in the 225. We get a little bit more giddy when things are awesome with LSU than with the Saints, but it's just a complete change. And it really wasn't the Carolina game that did it. It was last week against Dallas that did it. And if they can continue it against what is perceived to be a really good Philadelphia team, and we'll talk about that in the second hour, it's just going to grow. And that's really, really fun around here. So let's hope that keeps up. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.